All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are locked on Falcons. I'm your host, Aaron Freeman, and today I am once again joined by Alan Strk for part four, the finale of our Falcons all-time draft series, where we will be wrapping up our final six picks to build the ultimate Falcons defense.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So, guys, you know me. I'm Aaron Freeman. Been covering the Falcons for many years, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP. Still going strong on Twitter at Falcfans. And, of course, the host of this world-renowned Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of the Locked On Sports Atlanta podcast family. And we thank you guys for making Locked On Falcons your first listen each and every day, of course. Locked On Falcons is free and available on a variety of podcast platforms, including Apple, Odyssey, Google, Spotify, as well as YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Falcons on YouTube, and you'll get the video version of the podcast the night before the audio drops. And today we are wrapping up our Falcons all-time draft series. If you have been avoiding the podcast the last couple of days, this is part four of a four-part series where we are basically drafting all the greats of the Falcons in a fantasy snake style draft, going back and forth to build sort of the ultimate Falcons roster. We did the offense earlier this week. We did part one of the defense, the first 6 rounds, and we are going to wrap up our defensive picks. And before we get started, I believe I have the first pick, followed by 2 picks from Alan, if I'm not mistaken. You correct me,
No,
Alan.
I ended the sixth round, so I got one more.
You're right. You're right. I got confused on who ended last. It's
Okay.
been so long since we sat down and recorded that. But it hasn't been 5 minutes or anything like that. Yeah, well, so Alan will pick up where we started off, where we left off. But for those of you that missed part 3 of the 4-part series, or part 1 of the defensive series, I went Claude Humphrey, John Abraham, Jonathan Babineau, Grady Jarrett, Scott Case, Rod Coleman, going heavy on the defensive line. Allen went with much more balanced draft, went Deion Sanders, Jesse Tuggle, Tommy Nobis, Patrick Kearney, Roland Lawrence, and Ray Brown with his first 6 selections. So I have to make up some ground with the linebackers and in the secondary, while Allen is trying to figure out who is going to solidify his defensive line to get after Michael Vick, who was my quarterback selection in the previous rounds.
Just want to make 2 points here. I made a joke how I thought maybe you were going to try to build a 2014 Falcons defense, and within the first 2 picks, you said, "Nope, I'm taking 2 edge rushers. We're not going to have a 290-pound man coming off the edge." And the other thing I do want to note is that you're still kind of keeping the 2010 tradition alive with Abraham and Babineau on your team.
There you go. Look, they were I don't know the word. It was important years for me, that 2010 Falcons team that I seem to be building most of my roster out of. Sure.
Yeah, so I know you're not going to hire Mike Mularkey, but is Brian Van Gorder going to get a call?
That is possible. Yes, Brian. We need a solid mustache on the team to grimace and do all that stuff on the sideline.
To this day, I still think top 5 GIF of all time is his reaction after Corey Peters went offside in that, I think it was week 3, 2011 against the Bucks.
Was that Corey Peters? I kind of
was.
Okay. I think because of my disdain for Parade Jerry, I kind of retroactively made it Parade Jerry that jumped offside. So
like, it's 2022, you still have disdain for Parade Jerry, like what? Oh man. But all right, the clock starts now.
Yeah.
I am on the board. I've had some time to think about this. I really want to focus on getting a player that has played in the last 10 to 15 years because my team desperately needs it. And it just so happens that works on my draft board. And since you want to load up on defensive line, I'm going to get back at you with the corners. And I'm going to take one of the best corners that ever played for Falcons. Desmond Trufant. Let's get it.
Okay.
Only a one-time Pro Bowler, but to me, he was arguably the best corner in the league in 2014. Thought he was like a top 5 corner in 2015. Started strong in 2016 and then had a solid rebound year in 2017 following the torn Achilles. I know his play dipped off afterwards, but to me, Trufant has a very good career. I didn't even mention his strong rookie year as well. To me, before the injuries picked up, I thought he really put together a stellar body of work, and I think he is well deserving of this pick.
Oh, fair. Desmond Trufant. He was one of the top corners left on my board. And because I've already blew my wad with the D line and I don't love these linebackers, I'm going to go back to back corners here. And I'm going to go with Bobby Butler and Ray Buchanan.
I see. I wanted to pick Big Play Ray, but I was like, he was up there for me. But Bobby Butler is a little surprised. Why was he the guy you really wanted?
I don't have a specific reason. I know he was very productive for the Falcons back in the day. And like for me, some of these corners left on the board, they're all kind of like Trufant, Buchanan, they were all kind of jumbled into this group. And I didn't have a strong preference for these guys. So I just kind of went with Butler. I know he was very solid for the team back in the day. So that was why he was ultimately my pick.
And then Ray Buchanan resume speaks for itself.
Hey, Ray,
Yeah.
he talked trash to Shannon Sharp and knocked him out of the Super Bowl. Like, that's all he needs to do to live on in history as one of the Falcon greats.
Why doesn't Skip Bayless give him a call, man? Like give Ray Buchanan a call. Like he could handle business.
There you go.
So, all right, I have 2 picks now, and I think it's about time I start taking some defensive linemen. And not only am I double dipping on defensive line, we're going to 2 players that played together. I think one I was bound to pick earlier, but I just really want Pat Kearney. But now it just totally makes sense. I got to go Chuck Smith.
Okay.
Because I think he's like the last great edge rusher on the board. And I think his resume speaks for itself. 3 double-digit sack seasons. Of course, was on the great 98 team. I think one of the most complete edge rushers in Falcons history. And then I'm going to take a player who kind of gets forgotten about, but man, he played a lot of years. He has that longevity. I'm going to go Travis Hall as my first D tackle.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the conversation we had yesterday where, like, I looked at it and, like, yeah, I think there's still some good D linemen available for you. And these were 2 of those guys that were, had I not basically made a run on some of the other guys, would have been next options for me. So I think those are 2 really great picks for you. And that, going back to the point I made earlier, where I think people will look at your defense and still be like, yeah, maybe his D line isn't as good as Aaron's in certain areas, but he's got a really balanced D line. So it's calling me to sort of second guess maybe my strategy there. Okay, so I have 2 picks. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the secondary, and let me get my next cornerback. And I'm very tempted to take your boy D'Angelo Hall because I feel like he's one of the 7 or 8 best corners available. But there's one guy that's close to my heart, and it continues the 2010 theme that you keep pushing. And we talked about him briefly when I can't remember who we were talking about with significant others. Oh yeah, Andre Rison. So this guy always comes up in terms of memorable Falcons significant others, and that is none other than Brent Grimes. Yeah, I love me some Brent Grimes. Those 2 years in 2010 and 2011 where I would put up there with pretty much any cornerback that's ever played for the Atlanta Falcons other than Deion Sanders. We'll see if AJ Terrell can sort of eclipse that with another year, but I think Brent Grimes was as good as any cornerback in the league in those 2 years. Optimus Grimes, all that various stuff. So you guys remember him in his time here in Atlanta.
I'm just glad we both now have to, manage certain relationships. I don't have the whole burden, even though I was targeting Brent Grimes.
There you go. Okay, so now I need to go safety. And there's one player that I think, stands out in Falcons history above the rest. But to be honest with you, I don't really know that guy. And frankly, outside of basically Claude Humphrey and Bobby Butler, I'm not too interested in stacking my roster with guys I've never really seen play. So I'm gonna go and throw a curveball here, and I'm very tempted to pick some guys, but I'm gonna go with my guy. I'm gonna go with Willie Moe
Damn,
as my safety.
good pick. Good pick.
Get that enforcer next to Scott Case. There's some other guys that I'm very tempted to take, and I'm ultimately upset that I will not wind up with. This is part of the strategy of not of using that flex on a D lineman instead of waiting for the flex. But I'll live with it, knowing that Willie Moe is just going to be out there, wrecking dudes.
Oh man, you're always ready, Aaron.
There you go.
Always, man. I was targeting him, so.
All right, guys, we got more picks to come on today's Locked On Falcons all-time draft series, wrapping up the defense. But before we get to those remaining picks, I want to tell you about Built Bar, the protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar. It's even better than a candy bar because Built Bars not only taste good, they're good for you because they're low in sugar, calories, and carbs, but high in protein and fiber. They come in a variety of flavors. You got limited time summer flavors like raspberry lemonade. You got the coconut brownie chunk puff, which is building off of the already great, already established coconut brownie chunk, and now adding that chewy, fluffy, marshmallowy goodness that comes in their puff flavors. You can also get the brownie batter puff, just as good as licking the bowl. You can get tried and trues like cookies and cream, coconut almond, cherry barcia, double chocolate, peanut butter brownie, salted caramel, and so much more. So find your favorite or order yourself a mix box so that you can try them all by heading over to built.com. And when you do, use the promo code LOCKED15 and you'll get 15% off your order. Head on over to the website right now. Find out all the latest limited time flavors. They're always rotating them over and over again at built.com. And also use that promo code LOCK15. That's LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com.
I gotta readjust here because I guess I'll give the listeners a bit of behind the scenes look. I don't have any more defensive tackles on my board. Like you literally took all of them. Like I need a defensive tackle. All I got is Travis Hall, and I'm thinking of defensive tackles in my mind right now. I'm not going with Chad Lavalaeus. I know there might be some push for that. I can't do it.
I got one D lineman on my board, but that was part of the reason behind taking Rod Coleman, because I was like, I'll just screw over Allen because there's only like 4.
But as you know, we can't leave the listeners waiting, so I'm gonna have to move promptly. I'm gonna go with safety here. Another player. I know you're the one who's avoiding players from back in the day. Screw it. I'm just gonna take him. He was 8 years a starter. He is a Democrat. Oddly enough, Todd Pridemore. I've never seen him play, but he had a hell of a career. And if we're going political, we're gonna push with Todd Pridemore. So crazy enough with him. So he'll play free safety, and I got Ray Brown as strong safety. So I do feel a little weird having a safety TAM that I've never seen play before, but the resume speaks for itself. They're on the top of the franchise list in interceptions. So I'm going to go for just pure credibility when it comes to my safety.
Yeah, Pridemore was the guy I was thinking about getting. I had him higher on my board than Willie Moe for the reasons you just mentioned, but I'm just like, I'm not passionate about Tom Pridemore just because, he was before my time.
Yeah. So, all right, this is where now I'm going to go off my board because when it comes to defensive linemen, I have 2 edge players, but I just don't feel comfortable playing them inside because it just wouldn't make sense because Travis Hall is not the biggest D tackle to begin with. And if I'm really building a team that has to beat you, I need size, like just the way you're playing power football.
Okay.
So at this point, I'm just pulling names out. I'm just thinking of a name that comes to mind. He wasn't on my board, but you know what? We're just going to get funky right now. Give me Grady Jackson.
I knew it. When you said size, I was like, he's definitely going Grady Jackson here.
just a mammoth human being. He's going to take on all those blockers. Forget it. You want power football? Go ahead. You're just going to run into a mammoth of a human being. I don't know how many snaps he could play. I should probably get another defensive lineman, but for now, we're just going to go Grady Jackson. One of the key figures of that 2008 team, which obviously what a memorable story that was.
Yeah. Did we initially pick him up in 06 or was his first year 07?
I think it was 06. If I could quickly do a look. I remember he got cut in 07 because
I
Petrino doing Petrino things, who I'm very disappointed I hadn't mentioned on this podcast. But he was actually on the Jaguars briefly, and then he was re-signed by the Falcons in July 28, 2008.
I remember us bringing him back on the eve of training camp in 08. I remember him getting cut, but I couldn't remember, like, did we all get so attached to Grady Jackson just off of like those 7 games he played in 07, or did he have the previous year where he played? And I'm sitting here going, like, we had the potential to have John Abraham, Patrick Kearney, Rod Coleman, and Grady Jackson all on the same defensive line in that 06 season, and they all got hurt basically
after one game. Against that Carolina game was like, oh my God, this team might have the best defense ever, and it all fell apart. But crazy enough, for Grady Jackson in 2006, he led the league in tackles for a loss. So he was legitimately good. So look, he was on my board. I wasn't really considering him, but I need the D tackle. After the draft is over, I'll mention one other player that I considered. But ultimately, I had to go Grady Jackson.
The D lineman that I had on my board that I was considering, or I would have potentially considered, was Don Smith. He was the nose tackle back in the early 80s, I think, on those grid blitz teams.
Okay.
So, all right. So I got my final 2 picks, and I need to get linebackers, and you took the 2 good ones, and now I'm like, do I really want to take Keith Brooking?
I mean, the resume, like, dude, he has a good resume.
The resume is great, but like, I'm just like, really?
He's so unpopular. See, you're so worried about popularity, Aaron. You got to build a football team, Dan.
I mean, I just like, you're right. Like, I'm gonna take Keith Brooking, but like, I'm not happy about it. He's 26th on my draft board. That's how low I had Keith Brooking.
Wow, he was 6 on mine.
Yeah, I just
you're still bitter. Why are you still bitter?
Just, man, I don't know, man.
Brooking 316, damn it.
He made 5 Pro Bowlers. His resume is great. I don't think he's as good as his resume says he is, but beggars can't be choosers at this point in time in the draft.
2-time second team All-Pro.
Yeah. And there's probably guys that had better careers than the player I'm about to pick right now. But again, just to balance out my lukewarmness over having Keith Brooking, the brand is strong. Let's go 2010. Let's go Sean Witherspoon.
Wow. Okay. That's a bit of a reach, but why not?
Am I going to take like Greg Brazina or Fulton Kirkendall or whatever?
Yeah, him. Yes. Captain Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, again, going back to what I said earlier, like, I'm not going to be enthusiastic outside of a handful of old school Falcons defensive players. So I'm going to go Sean Witherspoon just so I can have, fun, and not have to rely on Keith Brooking anchoring my defense.
He was not on my board. I just couldn't do it.
He was 28th on my board. So
I think, honestly, you could have made a stronger case for Deion Jones, as unpopular as he is at the moment.
Okay.
I think Deion Jones surpasses peak Sean Witherspoon.
Well, Deion Jones didn't have a 2011 season like Sean Witherspoon did. So I will still go down.
I love that season, but you could argue 2017 Deion Jones was just as good, if not better.
That you may be right. You may. I was going to argue against, but like, you actually may be right.
Like 2017 Deion Jones. Oof, what a season! And so with your 2 linebackers is Keith Brooking and Sean Witherspoon. Wow, they just missed each other.
Yeah. 08 for Brookings last year. Witherspoon's first 10 was 2010.
Right. And that's how you're finishing your team off.
That is it.
Yeah. So I have one more pick. And you know what? I have a flex spot now. I've been debating what I'm going to do. I just can't take another defensive lineman. It's not this at this point in the draft. It's like you got to take the most high profile name. You got to take someone that's cool. Unfortunately, I have too many corners. So I would love to take D'Angelo Hall, but I just can't do it. You know, I had in my notes, I was going to set it up, but I can't pick him. I wrote 2-time Pro Bowler, the true anti-hero, the anti-hero of all anti-heroes. Petrino was scared. Smitty wasn't. That was in my notes, but I can't take him. So you know what? I'm going to stick it 2017. I need a relevant safety. The enforcer himself. We're laying bodies out. Keanu Neal, ending it properly. Let's go.
All right, there you go. You got your enforcer. And it was hard for me to not take Keanu Neal when I took Willie Mo.
They're close, but I think William Moore maybe has a slight edge on longevity and wrapping ability.
Yeah. I think you can make an argument that peak Keanu Neal was better than Willie Mo, but just
Okay, yeah.
because Willie Mo, even though he was constantly injured, just like Keanu Neal, just was a little less injured, I guess, over the long term than Keanu Neal.
Right. But no, both have had pretty similar careers, even though obviously William Moore had a slightly longer career and suffered less brutal injuries. But yeah, it's weird. Both of them are oddly similar. But I think William Moore has interceptions as well, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. William Moore had multiple 5 interception seasons.
Yeah, he was very opportunistic, very DeMonte Casey-esque.
Yeah, but I'll argue though, 2017 Keanu Neal, and thankfully he did make the Pro Bowl that year. I'm glad he got that in because he was just, I think, one of the main reasons why we saw the defense play so well in 2017. I always have this argument that 2017 that Falcons defense was good. I don't care what statistic you show me, that 2017 defense got after it, and then to me, Keanu Neal was right up there with Deion Jones as the best player on that defense that season. So. Yeah, I'm glad I can end it like that, and I'm just glad I have a safety that people know and a safety that I might need because if Tom Pridemore is running for election, I got that depth.
Okay. So we will come back and wrap up this defense and wrap up, I guess the entire process in this 4-part series now that we are officially done here on the Falcons All-Time Draft Series. So, Alan, here to wrap up this series, we've now completed our drafts. If you decided to skip 20 minutes into the podcast just to hear what the teams were, we had for my defense, my D line consists of Claude Humphrey, Jonathan Babineau, Grady Jarrett, and John Abraham. I threw in Rod Coleman as my flex guy. My linebackers are Keith Brooking and Sean Witherspoon. My corners are Bobby Butler, Ray Buchanan, Brent Grimes, and my safeties are Scott Case and Willie Mo. Allen with probably the more balanced defense. On his D-line, he has Patrick Kearney, Grady Jackson, Travis Hall, Chuck Smith, linebackers Jesse Tuggle, and Mr. Falcon himself, Tommy Nobis. The corners are Deion Sanders, Roland Lawrence, and Desmond Trufant. Safeties are Ray Brown, Tom Pridemore, and his flex is another safety in Keanu Neal. So there you guys have it. I'm impressed with your defense now that I see it all come together, Alan. I don't think the Grady Jackson pick is crazy in reference to some of the picks that I made with mine. So even if you want to sit here and say, oh yeah, Grady Jackson was a 1-year wonder, but I got a couple of guys that you could argue were kind of 1-year wonders on my defense. So it makes perfect sense. It feels like just right up my alley.
I feel like Grady Jackson had 2 years. I think he was good in 2008. And 2007, he got screwed by the worst coach in NFL history. I don't care what the record would say. Bobby Trino is the worst coach in NFL history, and that's the last time I'm saying his name on this podcast. But I want to go through quickly now what players that were on my board that did not get drafted, and then we could talk about the draft as a whole. But I want to mention, ironically, so from 1 to 19, everyone expected it was number 20, Buddy Curry, who was the co-defensive rookie of the year in 1980. He was someone that I had high up my list, but I went obviously linebacker early. Was he on your board?
No, I did not have Buddy Curry, but he was at consideration. He was for potentially the last spot on my board.
I want to quickly mention I had Rod Coleman 21. I just didn't feel like he played long enough to put up high on my board, even though he was great on the Falcons. I had Rod Coleman pretty low. I thought I'd maybe get him later on, but you clearly loved him as smart because look, I think having Coleman coming in for either Jarrett and Babineau, oh man, it's like how can the O-line have a break? Poor Mud Duck, he doesn't deserve this. He had to battle Rod Coleman training camp all those hot summers. Now he has to face him again. Man, and he's playing right guard for me. So I had at 23. Look, man, say what you want. D'Angelo Hall was on my board. I wanted D'Angelo Hall. I had to get my corners, but D'Angelo Hall at 23. I had Deion Jones at 24. I think Deion Jones you can make a case for. I know he's very unpopular right now, but I think I probably would have considered drafting him. 25. I had Fulton. How do you say his name? Captain Crazy.
Cooey Kindle? I don't know.
All I know is I was doing research on it. Apparently, he was like 225 pounds and just threw his body around like a human wrecking ball. So I think old school fans would have loved if we would have taken him, but just couldn't make it. Robert Alford, I had 27, which would have been hilarious if I picked him, because I feel like I would have lost everyone if I picked Robert Alford. 28, you're going to have to help me with this name. He was the edge rusher on the late 19s, Lester
Archambault.
Yeah, I actually had him on my board. He played a decent amount of years, and he had actually a double-digit sack season, so I did consider him, but ultimately just no room. And then the last player on my board, because I always had a soft spot for him, Brady Smith, because damn it, he played quite a bit of years with the Falcons.
Okay. Yeah. Not as much overlap with our boards, because the players I had left on my board was John Zook, who had played across from Claude Humphrey on those teams back in the late 70s as a pass rusher. He was 9 on my board.
Wow.
In the event that you were able to nab either Humphrey or Abraham early, I probably would have wound up getting Zook.
I think I just flat out missed him, because he's not on my board. So I think I just missed him. Terrible draft scout. Damn.
D'Angelo Hall was 19 on my board.
Oh wow! Here I thought I was the homer.
Yeah. Well, like I had a stack of corners, basically like 14 through 19. I was like, I'll wind up getting like 2 or 3 of these guys at some point later in the draft. That was my strategy going in. I also had Brian Jordan on my board, just out of nostalgia. For those people that don't know the story, Brian Jordan is the reason why I'm a Falcons fan. He is, I won't say distant. I think we're like second or third cousins or something like that. And when I found that out when I was 8 years old, I was like, I'll be a Falcon fan. That's how I sounded.
What a great decision you made.
The worst decision I ever made. But nothing but, emotional misery. At least now I'm making a little bit of money due to my fandom, but emotions, psychologically, I'm not doing well. So he was there. He was in consideration for that Willie Most part. Like, part of me wanted to pick him, but he also was a two-way player alongside Deion Jones. He played with Scott Case in those early 90s teams, played baseball, went on to continue playing baseball, never came back to football. So I think he only played like 3 years in the NFL. But had a very promising NFL future ahead of him before he decided to go play baseball. Don Smith, I mentioned earlier, the D tackle from the late 70s, early 80s. Greg Brzezina, again, from what I understand, had a great career, but again, some of these, 70s and 80s guys, I can't really pound the table for any of these guys other than just basically going to their Pro Football Reference page and being like, oh, they did this, they did that, like I can't really speak to that. And then another sort of old school guy was Jeff Marrow, in the event that I got left out in the cold on these pass rushers. Another guy that played in those, 70s, 80s teams. So basically, when I was building my board, I was trying to look at times where the Falcons were good, and particularly on defense in those late 70s and early 80s, where they had a pretty good defense in some of those years. So I was kind of pilfering from that era, in addition to all the players over the last 30 years that I've actually, seen play and know that they're good. So that was my strategy with building my board. But, I wanted to go heavy D-line. I was hoping I was going to get Deion at the start of the draft, but, I was hoping that you would go like Claude Humphrey #1 or something like that, and then I would be able to get Deion and Abraham with my 2 picks. But obviously that didn't work out when I won the toss in the first one, but we'll see.
Wow, you didn't have Robert Alford, man. What happened to the? Come on, man. After all these years with Robert Alford.
Look, there was a lot of players when I was kind of narrowing this board down to 29 guys. There was a lot of players that I considered, and Buddy Curry, Robert Alford, Curtis Lofton, Fulton, Cooey Kendall, Tim Green, Lester Archambault, Mike Gann, Joel Williams. Like, there was a whole bunch of guys that I'm like, Mike Lewis, Tony Casillas.
Did Eugene Robinson make the cut?
No, I actually did not have Eugene Robinson on my list.
Oh,
So now
no,
I'm
definitely
looking
not
back and
mine.
I probably should have had Eugene
Really?
Robinson.
Oh man.
The ones, again, I had no aversion to 1 year wonders when I came to my thing. If you were great for the one season that you were there, especially Eugene Robinson, where you could argue that the Falcons wouldn't have gone to the Super Bowl without him doing his thing. Now, obviously, you can also make the argument that the Falcons may have done a better performance in that Super Bowl if he hadn't have done his thing the night before in South Beach. But you know, it is what it is.
There you go. Wait, so we're talking about 1-year winners, but no consideration for Vic Beasley.
He was technically in the Excel document that I had. His name was written down. He was never at any point considered to be drafted, but I did at least write his name down as I was listing out all the edge rushers.
You're better than me, man. There's no way. I would lose. I would lose the contest immediately. I think either of us pick Vic Beasley, we're losing already. It doesn't even matter. You just put together a stellar D line and then you just draft Vic Beasley. It's like, but
yeah, that would have been fun. Just to troll people.
Before we wrap this up, let's just quickly give our top 10 for the for the defensive board. Excuse me. I had Deion Sanders 1, 2 Claude Humphrey, 3 Jesse Tuggle, 4 Tommy Nobis, 5 John Abraham. The only reason John Abraham was just that low because I just felt like Tuggle and Nobis had better overall careers on the Falcons. If you put them with Abraham, maybe you could make an argument Abraham was better than both over the course of his career, but Falcon-wise, I had to put Abraham a little low. 6, I had Keith Brooking, man. Say what you want about Keith Brooking. He had a great career with the Falcons. He probably should be in the Ring of Honor if he didn't, have such an ugly exit doing this thing with the Cowboys, shaking my head. 7, I had Roland Lawrence. 8, Grady Jarrett. Maybe Grady Jarrett could go up there within the next few years. 9, Scott Case. And then 10, I had Ray Brown. It hurt not to put Pat Kearney, but I had to put Ray Brown.
Okay. Yeah, my board is not based off of who I thought had the best careers. It was just based off of I want to go hard on the D-line. So I stacked my board very heavy in the top 10 with edges and D-linemen. So I had Deion 1, though. Claude Humphrey and John Abraham were 2 and 3. Babineau and Grady Jarrett were 4 and 5. Jesse Tuggle was 6. Probably should have put Tuggle higher. Now in retrospect, Rod Coleman was 7. Tommy Manobis was 8. John Zook was 9. Chuck Smith was 10, and Kearney would have been 11. And Scott Case was 12, by the way.
Okay.
And then Travis Hall was 13. So clearly, like 11 out of the top 13 guys on my draft.
Have you just been scarred from watching the Falcons where just like, I just want the best D-line possible? I'm tired of just not watching quarterbacks get hit.
Maybe.
So, it's an understandable strategy. But look, man, I'm trying to be a professional here. And I think I did a professional job building my team.
You did. Your team is balanced. Your defense, at least, is good. I feel great about my offense. I feel great about my pass rush. And then, like, that's it, basically.
Yeah, like, what are your linebackers going to do, man? Well, if they're not doing the spoon dance or making tackles 12 yards past the line of scrimmage, what are they doing?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it's going to be. Yes, pretty much.
All right, let's do a full wrap up here as the draft is complete now.
Okay, so let's do Allen's teams first. Starting quarterback, he has Matt Ryan. His 2 running backs, Willie Andrews and Jamal Anderson. Matt Ryan will be throwing his passes to Alfred Jenkins, Roddy White, Andre Rison, and the incomparable Algie Crumpler. His offensive line consists of Mike Kinn, Justin Blaylock, Jeff Van Note, Todd McClure, and Tyson Clabo. On defense, Allen will be getting after the quarterback with Patrick Kearney, Grady Jackson, Travis Hall, Chuck Smith. He will have 2 enforcers and dominant leaders in the middle of his defense with Jesse Tuggle and Mr. Falcon himself, Tommy Nobis. In the secondary, he's got ballers, he's got high steppers, he's got Deion Sanders, Roland Lawrence, Desmond Trufant, Ray Brown, Tom Pridemore, and Keanu Neal. But he will be having to deal with the likes of my offense, led by none other than some guy named Michael Vick at the quarterback position. We're playing power football with Michael Turner and Ovi Mahaley at the running back positions, wide receivers, Julio Jones, Terrence Mathis, Tony Gonzalez, and yes, Kyle Pitts. I went all star power. Good luck, Roland Lawrence. Good luck, Desmond Trufant, and good luck, Deion Sanders. Although you probably had the 3 guys that are most equipped to handle that responsibility.
Deion against Julio. Oh, man. What a matchup.
What a matchup. And on my offensive line, I have Bob Whitfield, Pitts, Bill Fralick, Alex Mack, R.C. Thielemann, and Jake Matthews. And on the defensive side of the ball, we're going to own the trenches because I got Claude Humphrey, Jonathan Babineau, Grady Jarrett, John Abraham, and Rod Coleman. Then at linebackers, I got two of the greatest Falcons to ever blow coverages in a playoff game. I have Keith Brooking, and I also have Sean Witherspoon.
Wait, what did Sean Witherspoon blow? Wait.
I realized I
what
threw Sean Witherspoon under the bus for no reason.
I gotta watch
Just
that
really throwing
Niners
shade at
tape.
Keith Brooking.
That 2012, that 2013, technically NFC Championship game. Who left Vernon Davis open all the time?
I don't even was Sean Witherspoon even in that game?
He was. Remember, he came back in November. He had the serious injury.
Okay.
Him and Steven Nicholas. I love Steven Nicholas, but unfortunately, I think he was responsible for a lot of those blown coverages.
Yeah.
By the way, quick note: I'm a little surprised neither of us had Thomas Deku on our list, but I just couldn't do it.
Again, he's in the Excel spreadsheet document that I created for this. But he did not make the cut. Yeah, you're right. So my bad, Spoon. I did not mean to throw you under the bus just so I could throw some shade at Keith Brooking.
And hey, you want to talk about playoff performances? He was responsible for allowing me to see the Falcons score points in a playoff game.
There you go. That Falcons-Giants game will never go away. Anybody.
It'll always be in my mind, unfortunately. Because
I'm obsessed with Parade Jerry. You're obsessed with that 20. What was it? 26-2.
27-2. Damn it.
Okay. Sorry, Eli. I didn't give you enough credit. Cornerback. This thing went off the rails a while ago. Cornerback. I have Bobby Butler, Ray Buchanan, Brent Grimes, and in the back end, I have Scott Case and Willie Moe, who's always ready. So, you guys out there, who do you think has the better team? Probably. I'm sure most of you probably more on my side on the offense, although we'll see, and probably be more on Allen's side on the defense. So I think that's the marquee matchup: your defense versus my offense. But
yeah, let's take some matchups off the top of the head. Like, I don't know why, for some reason, maybe because we can't get off 2012, but 2010, excuse me. Tyson Clabo, John Abraham. I feel like they had a lot of battles in the sun. I feel like they're gonna go. Was Mike Cannon and Claude Humphrey on the same team?
I don't. Dang, does Mike King go back? He might have been on that 79 team. You might be right.
So there's history with the matchups, and we already know Tom McClure, Jonathan Babineau, and Rob Coleman. So there's some serious history when it comes to trenches.
Yes.
And if I want to do Chuck Smith against Bob Whitfield, I'm going to do it.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm looking at. We don't have quite as many great storylines there with your D line versus my offensive line, but
my D line's a little bland, unfortunately. But that's how I think Gray Jackson. I had to make that pick because I needed size, and B, I just needed some popularity. Okay, even though I will say I did briefly consider Corey Pierce, but I just didn't feel like he was that high level enough.
No, I think you're right for going Grady Jackson there.
There's not a lot of D tackles all the time. It really wasn't.
Yes.
Now, will you use Brent Grimes to cover Roddy White, or are you gonna be scared?
I'm trying to think of who am I matching these guys?
Because I got some physical receivers.
You do.
You really need Willie Moe to be ready.
I do. Oh man, that's tough. That's a tough matchup. Roddy White, Alfred Jenkins, Andre Rison. I don't love all those matchups that I have. Did Bobby Butler and Alfred Jenkins play on the same team? I guess they can go toe to toe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that they were around the early '80s.
And I'll put Brent Grimes on Roddy White. They played each other, so yeah. And then we'll do the '90s guys and Ray Buchanan versus Andre Rison. I'm not looking forward to that matchup. That's probably
that's a gangster style right there.
Peak Ray Buchanan was very, very good. Let's say that.
Yeah,
but
I do want to mention, it's one big advantage you have, the fact that you have Kyle Pitts, and my safeties are from a very long time ago outside of Keanu Neal. I don't think any of the safeties that are on my team right now, besides Keanu Neal, played in an era where there was anywhere near the specimen of Kyle Pitts. So yeah, and you also just so happen to have one of the greatest tight ends of all time as well, Tony Gonzalez. So if Mike Vick, he does have accuracy issues. Let's not
look. We'll find out how good a quarterback Mike Vick is, because there's no excuse for him not to have 135 passer rating with the receivers I got on my team.
Yeah. Last thing I want to mention, did you get, because there was one other quarterback that definitely deserved consideration, but there was no way you were going to take him, right?
I'm assuming you're referring to Steve Bartkowski.
Yeah. Did you ever
Yeah.
consider him or no?
I mean, I did, but that's like I knew, like, between us, it was gonna be
Yeah.
Matt Ryan and Michael Vick. So, like, I just it was never really an option for me. So he wasn't on my draft board just for that reason. But yeah,
Now,
he would have been in consideration otherwise.
now, if your core audience was in their 40s and 50s, would you have done
I mean, I was kind of joke that I kind of think my core audience is in their 40s, 50s, but yeah, maybe that probably would have influenced things probably a little bit more. But yeah, you're right.
it?
Most of the people, at least I've come across, that are Falcon fans, at least on the internet, became Falcon fans during the Michael Vick era. So
Yeah. I just feel like he deserved the mention because he really is one of the greatest Falcons. When you think of quarterbacks, it's just we like a pick too. But I wanted to make sure he got a shout out. So,
it's fair. It's fair.
all right, do we want to let the people know how they could decide?
Yes. Um, as I'm recording this, I don't know exactly the mechanism. I'm sure I'll do like a Twitter poll or something like that. And so this will be a perfect opportunity for me to jump in with an edit later, to basically say exactly how will go. But more than likely, as we're recording this, it will be some type of Twitter poll. And of course, if you want to weigh in via comments on YouTube, or hit us up on Twitter at Locked On Falcons, you can tag Alan and myself at Falcons and Alan Strk, ALLENSTRK, or on Facebook, or you can send an email to lockedonfalcons@mail.com and sort of cast your vote via tweet, via email, whatever the case may be. If you don't want to vote in that Twitter poll or whatever, maybe I'll put a poll up on Facebook as well. So that's the plan as of right now. And always welcome your feedback on ways that we can improve this, in addition to what your thoughts are on our various teams, and then we'll try to do fun stuff like this each and every summer. And you guys can always suggest future content, potentially like that, that doesn't necessarily fit into the normal me constantly complaining about the Falcons 5 days a week that exists for the other 51 weeks out of the year, here on Locked On Falcons. So yeah, that's it. Anything else you want to add, Alan, before we duck out of here?
Not at all. This was a blast, Ed. I'm looking forward to all the feedback.
Absolutely. So Alan, let the people know what you're up to and where they can hit you up.
Find me Alan Strk. That's ALLENSTRK. Right now, the Falcoholic, we're trying to stay creative during this time. As you know, it's the quiet period of the off season, so I'm doing a couple of roundtables, maybe do a couple of player features. Besides that, I think just like everyone else, we're counting down the days till training camp starts. So at least we start getting some news and get to drop some takes.
There you go. Well, guys, that will do it for us. The final part of this 4-part series. I think we'll see. Again, as I'm recording this, if there is a guest on tomorrow's episode, I haven't recorded that episode yet, and or we'll probably wind up doing a mailbag. And so, of course, you can hit us up at the same spots I mentioned earlier for that sort of Q&A thing. That's probably the plan. But again, this is another great point for me to jump in with an edit, to revise this later on as we get closer to the date that this episode actually airs. But I hope you guys enjoyed the series. I look forward to more collaborations with Alan, not only in terms of written content, but in future video content as this 2022 Falcons season unfolds. And we'll see if Chris Lindstrom, and some of these other guys, Caleb McGarry,
Why?
I gotta represent the brand.
AJ Terrell.
AJ Terrell, yes. People that are actually, worthy of potentially being on any of these future series that we do, that probably a year or two from now, those guys probably would make the cut over some of the guys that we picked. But we'll see how it all plays out, guys. I'm done rambling at this point in time. Appreciate it. Till then. All right, guys, that's it. We're done. Less preamble or post-amble, I guess, is postscript on today's episode, outro on today's episode. So tomorrow's episode will be a Q&A mailbag question. I'll probably touch a little bit on sort of the top 4 prospects in the 2023 draft. I've watched a couple of those guys over the last week. with some of this time off. And so I'll give you my thoughts on that. And then, of course, you can send in your questions via Twitter or Facebook at Locked On Falcons. You can also send an email to lockedonfalcons@mail.com, or you can leave a comment here on the Locked On Falcons YouTube channel to submit your questions for Thursday night/Friday morning for the audio version of the podcast. And next week, we'll be back to our regularly scheduled, positional breakdowns, talking about each position group and what's at stake for this upcoming season, what we can expect to see this summer in training camp, and some of these key positional battles. So that will be the plan kicking off next week. So, guys, I hope you had a great week. I hope you enjoyed this series. Of course, you can provide your feedback on who you think won this via Twitter polls on Locked On Falcons or the community tab in the Locked On Falcons YouTube channel as well. So, guys, that will do it for us here. I'm done talking. Appreciate it. Talk to you guys tomorrow.